third grade. We get to work on math again today, and I hope you're so excited. So let's begin. Today we are going to represent and solve problems involving addition and subtraction of whole numbers to 1,000. How are we going to do this? We're going to review important vocabulary. We're going to read word problems and represent the problem with a strip diagram. We're going to use base 10 blocks in expanded form to model the problem, and then we're going to solve the problem using expanded form and base 10 blocks. Why are we going to do this? Well, it's important for us to be able to visualize what we are having to do when we are solving a word problem. So let's go ahead and get started. Here are the words we are going to look at today. Our first one we're going to look at is a strip diagram. A strip diagram is a visual of how to represent a problem. The next word we have is addition. Addition is when you combine two or more numbers to get a total. The next one is sum. Sum is the total of two or more numbers that are added together. So for this one, 7 plus 3 was 10. 10 was our sum. Our next word is subtraction, and it's when we take away an amount from a larger amount and we find the difference between the two numbers. And you're going to see that on here when they took something away, they crossed it out. That's a really important thing to remember, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The other one is difference, and when we find the difference, it's the distance between two numbers that can be found using subtraction. So let's go ahead and get started with our first problem. Here's what it says. Leela and Sydney are making beaded bracelets for the entire third grade. Leela has made 27 bracelets. Sydney has made 38. How many bracelets have they made so far? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our strip diagram. So let's look at this problem again. They're making beaded bracelets for the entire third grade. Leela has 27 bracelets. Sydney has 38. And we are trying to figure out how many bracelets have they made so far. So do we know our parts or do we know our total in one of our parts? If you said that we know our parts, you are correct. So we're going to fill in our strip diagram. So I am looking for the third grade total. I know that Leela made 27 and that Sydney made 38. The next thing I'm going to do is write my equation. So I'm going to say that I'm trying to figure out my third grade total. So I'm going to add 27 bracelets plus 38 bracelets. And when I do that, I'm going to actually get the third grade total. The next thing I'm going to do is actually estimate. So when I estimate, I use numbers that are easier for me to work with, and then it's going to help me get to a reasonable answer. So I'm going to see if my answer actually makes sense. So the first one I had was 27. Well, I know that 27 is really close to 30, so I rounded 27 to 30. And then I had 38, and I know that 38 is really close to 40, so I rounded it to 40. Now, whenever I add when I add 30 and 40, if I have my base 10 blocks, here's my 30 and here's my 40, that's going to get me all the way up to 70. Now, the last thing I have to do is actually solve this problem. So I have 27 bracelets plus 38 bracelets. Now you'll see I broke this into expanded form, and I did that so I was able to decide which base 10 blocks I wanted to use. So I needed 20. Well, I can use two 10s to give me 20, and then I have my 7 ones for that 7. I also need 30, so here are my 30, here's my 3 10s, and then here are my 8 ones. So after I have done that, I'm going to add them together. Well, I know that 20 and 30 give me 50. And I know that 8 plus 7 is 15. And if I forgot, I can use my base 10 blocks to help me count until I get my actual total. Now I need to decide what my total is going to be. So I'm going to bring all of these parts and pieces together. And when I do, I can see that I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And I can count on from 50. I can go 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. So I know that in total, the girls made 65 bracelets. Let's look at another example. The next example that we have says, a week later, Sydney and Leela have made 72 bracelets. They need to make 156 in order for everyone to have one. How many more bracelets do they need to make? So I'm going to first start off with my strip diagram, and I'm going to look at my problem again, and I'm going to decide, do I know my total? Do I know my parts? So let's look at it again. Sydney and Leela have made 72 bracelets. Well, that's a part. They need to make 156 bracelets in order for everyone to have one. That's my total. That's the number they have to get to. I'm trying to decide how many more bracelets do they need to make. So I'm able to use that information to fill in my strip diagram. So I know they need to make a total of 156 bracelets. So that's going to go in my hole. And I also know they've made 72 so far, but I still need to figure out how many more they need to make. So I've done my strip diagram, so the next thing I'm going to do is write my equation. So there's a couple of ways I can write this equation. One way I can do it is 72 bracelets plus the amount I need to know, and it will equal 156 total bracelets. So the first thing I'm going to do is the next thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to estimate. I know that 72 is close to 70. I don't know how many I'm going to still make, but I know I have to get up to 156. Well, 156 is pretty close to 160, so I'm going to round to 160. Now, in order for me to figure out how many bracelets I actually have to make, I'm going to change my equation a little bit, and I'm going to actually say that I'm going to subtract. So I have 160 bracelets, and I modeled that with my base 10 blocks. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170. And I said that I'm going to take 70 of those bracelets away. Now remember, when we talked about our vocabulary, I said whenever we want to take something away, we cross it out to show us that it's been taken away. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to cross off 7 of my 10s to get rid of 70 bracelets. So when I do that, now I can decide how many are left. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So I have 90 bracelets left. So I'm saying that I'm going to need somewhere around 90 bracelets to make my equation true. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm actually going to solve. So again, I am going to move my camera. I am going to write down my equation that I had. So I'm going to use the same subtraction equation that I used for my rounding, but I'm going to put the actual numbers in. So I said 156 bracelets minus 72 bracelets equals the number that I still need to make. Now I'm going to break this number down into expanded form again, so I know how much base 10 blocks to use. I'm going to start with my bigger value so that I'm able to actually take something away from it. So I said 156 is the expanded form of that would be 100 plus 50 plus 6. So I'm going to actually make that with my base 10 blocks. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. But I still need to have my 50, so then I'm going to say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So there's my 150 plus my 6 ones. Now I'm going to subtract 72. So with my 72, I'm going to break it apart into 70 plus 2. I'm first going to take away my ones place. So whenever I take something away, remember I cross it off. So I've crossed off my 2 ones. Now I'm going to take away my 70 bracelets. So when I do that, I'm going to do what? If you said I'm going to cross off 70 of my bracelets, you are correct. So I'm going to cross off 7 groups of 10. And when I do that, I'm able to decide what my answer is. So I can look at my base 10 blocks and count them to decide how many bracelets I still need to make. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84. So the girls need to make 84 more bracelets in order to get back to their total of 156. So let's review what we talked about today. So today we talked about how to represent with our strip diagram and solve problems involving addition and subtraction of whole numbers to 1,000. We reviewed our important vocabulary words. We read word problems and represented the problems with strip diagrams. We used base 10 blocks and expanded form to model the problem. And we solved the problem using expanded form and base 10 blocks. And we did this because it's important to be able to visualize what we are having to do when we solve a word problem. Now it's going to be your turn. In a moment, I'm going to show you what your page is going to look like, but you are going to represent and solve word problems. Make sure you include the following information. You're going to draw a strip diagram. You're going to write your equation. You're going to show me your estimation, so you're going to write the actual equation. You're going to write it in expanded form, and you're going to model it with base 10 models. Then you're going to solve. You're going to solve with the expanded form, and you're also going to solve using your base 10 blocks. That way you're able to really prove your answer with your model. So you are going to have papers that look like this. So you're going to be given your word problem. So in this one it says there are 162 students in 3rd grade. The day of the fun run, 22 students will not be at school. How many 3rd graders will be running in the fun run? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do your strip diagram. After you've done your strip diagram, you are going to do your equation. After you do your equation, you are going to do estimation, and you are going to do it with your expanded form, and you are going to use your base 10 blocks to help you. Now remember, when we draw our base 10 blocks, we actually just draw it with this key right here. So if I'm doing my 10s, I just draw a line. If I'm doing my 1s, I do a dot. So that's what I did. I have 16, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160. And I have to get rid of 20, so I have to get rid of 2 10s, so I crossed off 2 10s. And when I do that, I can see that I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140 left. So I'm saying that I'm going to be somewhere close to 140 for my answer. So the last thing I'm going to do is actually solve this problem, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to use my equation, I'm going to use my base 10 model, and then I'm going to show that I'm solving it by crossing off my 22. So when I do that, let me move my camera. You can see 162 is broken up into 100 plus 60 plus 2. I'm going to subtract 22, so I'm going to take away 20, and I'm going to take away 2. And that's exactly what I've done. So I have my 162. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 161, 162. Now when you take away, I'm going to start by taking away with my ones place. So I'm going to take away 2 first. So I'm going to cross those 2 out. So I've done that. Then I'm going to take away 20. Well, that's 2 groups of 10. So 10, 20, and I crossed both of them out. Now when I do that, I count to see how many are left over. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140. And my answer is 140 students will run in the fun run, which is pretty close to 140, so I did my estimation right. If you have any questions while you are working on your problems, please ask your teacher.